Global temperatures breached the critical 1.5 degrees Celsius warming threshold for the first time over a 12-month period.
Human Rights Watch denounces apparent war crimes in the siege of Mariupol in a new report and asks for justice. Days of a diplomatic push spearheaded by the US to produce a ceasefire in Gaza have ended in a defiant rebuff from the Israelis. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected the terms proposed by Hamas, claiming instead that victory in Gaza was imminent.
אנחנו בדרך לניצחון מוחלט. הניצחון הוא בהישג יד. זה לא עניין של שנים או עשרות שנים, זה עניין של חודשים. צה"ל מחולל נפלאות. הוא מתקדם בשיטתיות להשיג את כל מטרות המלחמה שאנחנו בדרג המדיני הצבנו לו. חיסול החמאס, שחרור כל החטופים, והבטחה שעזה לא תהווה עוד איום על ישראל.
The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken had been hoping that Israel would be willing to work on the Hamas proposals, which included a 45-day pause in fighting, the delivery of food and other aid to Gaza, and an Israeli withdrawal. But Netanyahu claimed many details were delusional. Nonetheless, Blinken is not giving up.
What I can tell you about these discussions is that while there are some clear non-starters in Hamas's response, we do think it creates space for agreement to be reached. And we will work at that relentlessly until we get there.
The urgent question now is whether something can be salvaged to keep these talks going to achieve another exchange of hostages and prisoners and a desperately needed humanitarian pause to allow more aid into the Gaza Strip. Human Rights Watch reports apparent war crimes in the siege of Mariupol, according to new report, and asks for justice. The document denounces that the Russian assault on Mariupol between February and March 2022 left thousands of civilians dead and injured, including many in apparently unlawful attacks, and trapped hundreds of thousands for weeks without basic services.
Самое страшное, наверное, было не так еда, а как и тепло, да, а как медикаменты. И люди просто умирали из-за того, что этого просто не было. Больше всего людей пострадало. Вот. Это стариков и детей.
Denis Shevstov, former Mariupol resident, walks through the streets of an isolated city where basic services lack.
So we left without gas, without water, without power, so we are absolutely isolated from civilization. No internet, no update, nothing.
Human Rights Watch and Ukrainian NGO Truth Hounds documented in detail 14 attacks that damaged or destroyed 18 buildings, killing and injuring civilians. They include attacks that struck 2 hospitals, the city's drama theater sheltering civilians, a food storage facility, an aid distribution site, and a supermarket.
Our analysis has led us to conclude that international bodies and governments committed to justice should investigate and appropriately prosecute 10 individuals who we name, including President Putin, and potentially other commanders who appear linked to overseeing war crimes in Mariupol.
The report is based on 240 interviews with mostly displaced Mariupol residents by Human Rights Watch and Truth Hounds, and an analysis of over 850 photos and videos, documents, and dozens of satellite images.
Wives, mothers, sisters and grandmothers protesting on the streets of Kyiv against the government's controversial mobilization bill. President Zelensky wants to lower the conscription age from 27 to 25, end service exclusions for people with minor disabilities, and require soldiers to spend 36 months in active service. After 2 years of full-scale war, these women are demanding frontline soldiers be relieved of their duties after 18 months. More troops, more rotations means less time on the battlefield.
Мій чоловік 2 роки вже знаходиться в зоні бойових дій. За цей весь час в нього було 30 днів відпустки, і виводили їх тільки на ротацію на 1,5 місяця, і все. Наших чоловіків мають замінити, вони мають мати час на відпочинок. І потім, якщо вони захочуть повернутися, то так. Ми за те, щоб війна продовжувалася, доки ми не вийдемо на кордони 91-го року.
В мене є син, йому 3 роки. Тобто більшу частину його життя його тато був відсутній. І це накладає якісь свої відтінки. Це не мітинги про зупинення якоїсь війни чи ні. Це про те, що хлопці виконують свій громадянський обов'язок. Як будь-якого громадянина нашої країни, хлопці повинні мати не тільки обов'язки, а й права.
Я бабушка військового. Хлопці з першого дня воюють, їх немає заміни. Дуже багато загиблих, хлопці виснажені. І треба їм, щоб або чіткі терміни служби мобілізації, короткі терміни. Буде більше бажаючих на мобілізацію. Будуть знати, що вони зможуть повернутися. Що це не до кінця війни. Хто виживе, той повернеться.
If more volunteers join the fight, conscripts might be allowed home.
The Ukrainian Army Command says it needs 500,000 new recruits to reinforce troops, replace losses and give some relief to those who've been on the front for 2 years. And these women, as many families in Ukraine, believe that reducing active service time can only boost morale and increase chances of victory. I'm Valerie Goria in Kyiv for Euronews.
A US drone strike in Baghdad has killed the senior commander of a powerful Iranian-backed Iraqi militia. It's the latest retaliatory move by American forces following an attack on a base that killed 3 American soldiers last month. The US military's Central Command said the strike killed a Kataib Hezbollah commander responsible for directly planning attacks on US forces in the region. The move increases concerns that Washington is getting involved in a broader conflict.
Talks to form a far-right-led government in the Netherlands have come to a premature end for now, leaving the country in limbo as attempts to build a political coalition around anti-Islam lawmaker Geert Wilders stall. Centrist party NSC ended talks last night over what it called, quote, worrisome government finances. Wilders' Party for Freedom, or PVV, swept to victory in the country's November parliamentary election on campaign pledges that included slashing immigration.
Voters in Azerbaijan have been casting their ballots in a snap election, almost certain to give incumbent President Ilham Aliyev another 7-year term. It follows his government's swift reclaiming of the Karabakh region from ethnic Armenian separatists who controlled it for 3 decades. Analysts suggested that Aliyev moved the election to capitalize on his burst in popularity following September's blitz in Karabakh.
Now there is a historical chance about a peaceful transformation of the region, and also with an ultimate goal of signing the peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan and normalizing the relations between 2 countries. As such, it could also have an effect for wider transformation of the region of the South Caucasus. But in the meantime, after the election, Azerbaijan enters a new stage of its social, economic and political development as such. And once again, this war is over, but was one of the priority for the Azerbaijani government and Azerbaijani people. Once Azerbaijan's territorial integrity has been ensured, now the new ambitions and new national dreams are emerging on our agenda. This national dream is about a peaceful development and further social economic development of Azerbaijan.
In Fuzuli, the Azerbaijani city near Karabakh that was controlled by Armenian forces until 2020, residents participated enthusiastically in the voting process.
Geleceğimiz yani avant olsun, sülh içinde yaşayaq. Ne bileyim, ölkəmiz gözəlləşsin yəni. Bu baxımdan.
62-year-old Aliyev has been in power for more than 20 years. According to the exit poll, he is set to win with nearly 93% of the vote.
Germany's Lufthansa airline has cancelled hundreds of flights after ground staff went on strike for a day at 5 airports across the country. The Verdi union called for the action at Lufthansa's 2 main hubs, Frankfurt and Munich, as well as Berlin, Düsseldorf and Hamburg.
Die Beschäftigten bei der Lufthansa heute zeigen, dass das so nicht funktioniert, wenn ein Arbeitgeber eine komplette Verweigerungshaltung am Verhandlungstisch signalisiert. Und deswegen braucht es diesen Streik, um den Arbeitgeber bewegt zu bekommen.
Bedauere ich die Eskalation der Verdi, diese Eskalation, die aus meiner Sicht nicht nötig gewesen wäre. Wir sind auch bereit, die Gehälter zu erhöhen und haben auch unseres Erachtens ein gutes Angebot gemacht mit Steigerung von Gehalt und Bestandteilen von 13% über die nächsten 3 Jahre.
In Frankfurt, Munich and Dusseldorf, between 80 and 90% of all flights weren't carried out. Some 100,000 passengers have been affected and need to change their travel plans.
Dass man für seine Rechte einsteht, ist in Ordnung, aber es sind halt oft dann die normalen Leute betroffen, die vielleicht auch viele Monate auf einen Flug gespart haben, der dann nicht stattfinden kann.
Lufthansa said tickets could be rebooked free of charge and tickets for German domestic flights could be converted into rail vouchers.
For the first time, the global temperature pushed past the internationally agreed upon 1.5 degrees Celsius warming threshold for an entire year. The new climate change report by Copernicus said that January 2024 was the hottest ever January recorded. The findings are based on atmospheric, land and oceanic climate variables data. The report found an average surface air temperature of 13.14 degrees Celsius in January 2024, which was above the average for the month of January from 1991 to 2020, and 0.12 degrees Celsius above the temperature of the previous warmest January in 2020. The globe has broken heat records each month since last June. Climate scientists blame a combination of human-caused warming from the burning of fossil fuels and the El Niño climate pattern.